Hello. I hope we are all fine. We are live, and I want to welcome all of you to this live show. I have a couple of gentlemen with me, and I will be very happy to introduce each and every one of them. But before then, I just want to say why I started this show. I just want us to discuss about love, relationships, life, and everything in between. And I'm so delighted to have to discuss the men who have achieved different things in their lives. We have someone who is a doctor. We have someone who will talk about relationships. We have someone who will talk about healing, and we have someone who will talk about cheating, reconciliation, and just relationships in general. Now, the first person that I want to bring on board, if the gentlemen can hear me, they can just, wave. If they can hear me. The first person that I want to bring on board is Steve. So, Steve, how are you?
I am very fine. I'm fine.
Okay. Yes. Steve, you have a very interesting story for us
Yes,
today.
I do. Yes.
So let's just first begin with your story. I don't want to preempt.
Okay.
You are a man who is wearing a lot of hats. So maybe you just take us through who you are and why we have decided to invite you today.
Okay. So my name is Steve Muchiri, also known as Victor. You can call me Victor. I am a father to one. I have one boy called Haziel Samuel Muchiri. I'm a husband to Joanne Muchiri. I am a business person. I am an author. I do speaking engagements in different platforms. I have authored 2 books. One is called The Victor in Every Victim, that has a story that I'm going to share with you today. And the other one is The Journey of a Victor. It's basically also an inspirational book that I also share my personal experiences in terms of my business and career life. Yeah, and I'm really happy to be here. Thank you, Shirley, for even inviting me into your platform to come and share my story and how I was able to overcome and how it has impacted me. Yeah.
Okay, so please share with us.
Yes.
Your story, as I mentioned. We just need to hear why today you have decided to share with us about healing.
Okay.
Because then you have a story like none other.
Yes. So when I was 16 years old, I lost, or by the time I was 16 years old, I had lost my entire nuclear family. And that is my father, my mother, my brother, and my sister. So I'm the firstborn, born in 1986. I'm turning 34 this year. So I grew up in the village in Embu County, in a place called Gakwegori. So that's where I grew up in, and that's where everything happened. And this was not like an accident. It was when you see your sister get sick and you think they'll be okay, then the next thing you hear is they passed on. So it started with my sister. That was in the year 1992. She was born in 1990, died in 1992. She had pneumonia and measles. So that's what That's what took her life. I was 5 years. I was just 5 years old, so I was not able to really understand death so much. Of course, I knew I had lost a sibling because she was my small sister who I used to play with. Yeah, and it was difficult, not having her, not having to see her anymore. Then now, in the year 1998, my brother was born, but he passed on the same year. That is in around September in the year 1998. He had meningitis, so he was only 9 months. He was born in 1998, but died in September. He was born in January, so it was very very difficult. I was At that time I was 12 years, so I understood what death was, and it was difficult because he was born. My sister died in 1992. He was born in 1998. That is 6 years later. So when he was born, I knew I had a playmate. I had somebody I can call brother, and so when he died, it was really a big blow for me. But I had to, because I was explained to what death is about, and of course I was 12 years, so I could understand. So I let it go, and I hoped things would be better. But then in the year 2000, after my brother passed on, I remember seeing my mother very. She was overwhelmed with grief because losing two children, it's not an easy thing. So she really got so overwhelmed, and she started becoming sickly. So 2 years from then, she was in and out of hospital. And I remember this time she collapsed in the house, and we took her to hospital. And when she went to hospital, she was diagnosed with malaria and typhoid, and she was on treatment. But she didn't make it. Just like 5 days, she passed on. So now this was a bit of a shocker because it is not something that I had anticipated, because malaria and typhoid then was a disease that or is a disease that can be treated. So I would say I was in shock at first, and I didn't know how to take the news. I remember I was 14 years. I was in class 7. Then of course my father really encouraged me, and of course it was not easy for us. We went through the process, the burial. Now we are left with my dad. I went to class 8, then went to high school. Then when I was in high school in Form 1, that is in the year 2001. Okay, my father was diagnosed with the tuberculosis. And I remember thinking, then tuberculosis was a very, very dangerous disease, if I would say it in that way, because you would be on medication for a whole month. I mean, a whole drugs, injections for like a whole month, and then of course be on medication. But what we were told is tuberculosis was at a point where he would have to be on medication for a whole year. So that was a bit tough for us. And at that time, I remember his business had really gone down. My dad was a taxi driver, and I remember his car had broken down. So it was really, really difficult for us. And we were just hoping that things would be good. But to cut the long story short, in the year 2002, my father succumbed to tuberculosis. And I remember that was now when it hit me so badly that I have lost entirely everyone. Yeah, so that's basically the story of grief and loss.
Okay, so I have a couple of questions for you, Steve. You have told us the loss that you went through.
Yes.
But how did you cope? Because being 16 years, losing everyone.
Yeah.
How did you cope? Maybe that's what a lot of people want to
know.
Hear.
Okay. First of all, I would say it was not easy. To be honest, it was very, very hard. I reached a point I actually didn't know life, I didn't know what I would be in life because I was so wounded and injured. I was just living because I have to live. I didn't live for anything. And I was scared. I remember I was scared. I remember after my father died, I got, I was diagnosed with typhoid, and I actually thought I am next, you know? So I was living in a lot of fear. I was living in a lot of grief. But what I did, and it's not a good thing, I blocked everything that I was going through, and I assumed I was fine, but that was it was a defense mechanism. So I also thank God because of my extended family. I have a very very good extended family that decided to take care of me. I remember um, my 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 father, especially from my father's side, he has like 14 siblings, brothers and sisters. So they were really there for me. But there is one of his sisters who really took a step ahead to just take me in our family, so that now I can be in a family setup. So she and her husband took me in, and they decided to take care of my needs in terms of food, shelter, school fees, clothing, and everything. So that really helped me to cope. Then of course the moral support I got from my extended family. And the other thing is, I knew God at a very young age. So when my parents passed on, and my brother and sister, I I decided, the only person who now I would really trust in is God, because I had no one to look up to, and Him even giving me, hope in terms of uh, my auntie taking me in, was a way to show me that God was still in control. He still had a plan for my life. So that helped, And but now what happened is, when I was in campus, I lost my paternal grandfather, and when he died, he was very close because he used to mentor me. He used to talk to me. He used to tell me things that I would do in life, because he really he had lost his son. So he looked at me, and he felt, this guy is the one who has been left, and so when he's alive, it's like my son is alive. And so he used to really encourage me. So when he passed on, it really hit me hard, and I realized everything else that had happened now, like, came like a, that it was like a movie, flashing back, and seeing everything happen. And I remember that's when now I realized, I really blocked this thing, and I need to deal with it. So what I had to do was, I had to go through counseling, and I thank God, because then I went to Didier University, and I was doing a course in psychology. And at that time, there was a mandatory course for psychology students to do a course in grief counseling. So that day in class, I remember our lecturer asking if anyone had lost somebody very close, and I said I had lost my grandfather. And she went on, and that's when she realized I had actually lost my entire family, and my grandfather was just one of the recent family members. And that's how she told me that she will help me. Then at the same time, I was going through personal development school, and I remember I really wanted to understand what I am here on earth to do, in terms of purpose, in terms of what do I want to do with my life. So these things coincided in a way that I think it was God trying to help me to start moving, because I think what grief did is it really made me not believe in my abilities, and in my in my gifts. I didn't understand who I was. So that's now I went through counseling. I went through 12 sessions of counseling therapy, and I remember it was so difficult, because it was like, washing all wounds that have not been cleaned. And it was very, very, very difficult, but it was worth it, because I remember after going through the sessions, I felt like a certain weight had been lifted off my life, and I felt so. I felt like I'd been renewed, and so I didn't understand the extent of what the grief that I carried until I went through counseling, and it's then that I started now realizing that um, because of the steps I was taking in terms of even seeking personal development, I realized I can, there are things that I didn't know I would do. For example, like writing and speaking. That's when I started sharing my story and now writing about it. So I wrote this book. It's called The Victor in Every Victim. So it's the book that has my story. It's a book that I talk about what happened and how God helped me to overcome and what I have done, in terms of, even helping other people to be able to come out and share, and also, tell people the importance of therapy and what have you. Yes.
Thank you so much, Steve. I have another question, for you.
Yes.
So there is this aspect of you being scared. You've said at some point you shared with us that you actually were full of fear. But before we get back to you, Steve, because there's a couple of things that I would want us to discuss. Let me just bring Sam David. Sam, I don't know whether you can hear me. Sam, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Hello.
So Sam, I just want to maybe bring you to maybe give us a bit of insight, because you are a man of God, based on the story that you have heard from Steve. What advice can you give? Because he said he went for counseling, but from a pastoral point of view, what brief advice can you give? Can people come to church, and if they have gone through a certain kind of grief like this, what can be done from the church point of view?
All right. Thank you so much. Oh man, let me tell you, that is a testimony and a half. When you hear of somebody that he was the only one that was left, and what he had was just to turn back to God, that gives a lot of hope. Actually, somehow his story touches me, and I felt like, man. And I remember reading a book, that book of his. I think I read that book somewhere, and I'm really encouraged. Now, this is what happens when your back hits against the wall. Where do you turn to? When everything turns and you're all alone like Joseph, that he was all alone by himself, where do you go? And that is where the devil meets people, and that's where the devil comes and destroys the lives of many, because the devil shows you how hopeless you are, how you don't have future, how your life is destroyed, and that's where the devil finishes people. But look at this. God has given us hope. We should have hope in God. Our hope is not in anybody. In fact, the Bible says, "Cursed is a man that hopes on another man." Look at that. That's very clear. Cursed is a man that hopes on another man. Let me tell you the truth. Some of you that are watching us, or some of us, the worst thing that you can ever do, even if you have as many friends, is to depend on them. Your hope should be on God. It doesn't matter who goes, it doesn't matter who is left. You should always put your hope in God. I remember, Charlie, you remember sometimes we've come a very long way with you. There are times that I used to sleep in church. It's not that I don't have a place. It's only that my mom stays very far. And now I found refuge in the house of God. Now, this is what should happen. as a human being, you should always learn to depend on God. Whether you have everything or you have nothing, at all times, you should learn to depend on God. And if you do so, then it means that your life is in safe hands. Look at this. The Bible says, "For I knew you before I formed you in your mother's womb." God knew you. God had plans for you. In fact, my bishop says, you did not surprise God. You coming on earth, you did not surprise God. So you being on earth, it was something that God had a plan for. Are you getting me? So it is very clear as a human being and as a believer to know that you are not an accident. You are not an accident. You are planned by God. And this is what you should do. Pick up yourself. Pick up yourself. Things will not always go the way you want them to go. Nobody will always favor you the way you want to be favored. No door will always be open the way you want it to be opened. But look at this. Put your faith and your hope in God. Even in this time of coronavirus, what we should do, it is turn our hearts to God. Let God direct. The Bible says, "My son, give me your heart and let your eyes observe my ways." And it's very clear. As long as we have our hope in God, then it does not matter the condition that we are going through. It shall be well. I love this testimony because the testimony shows that how my brother put his hope in God, how he put his trust in God. And despite everybody and everyone that he knew all around him, especially his family, were taken, and he was all alone. And he put his trust in God. Look at him today. Is an indication that God has a plan for you. You are not an accident. You are not a mistake. You could have been birthed by your mother being raped in the streets, and you think that you're a mistake. No, nobody is a mistake on the face of the earth. God has a plan and a strategy for your life. Amen.
Thank you so much, Pastor Sam David. I am just going to bring Steve back. I don't know whether Steve can hear me. Steve, can you hear me? Steve, I am not sure whether you can hear me. Hello. We seem to be losing you, Steve, if you can hear me. Now, I will just bring someone who is very dear to me. My husband, again, is with us today. And I just need to, have this conversation with him. Okay, Steve, Steve, we found you again. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Okay. So before I bring my husband, I will just continue with you. Now, after dealing with grief,
Yes.
something happened.
Me?
Yes, I can.
Yes.
I can. Okay. So how did you transition and even decide to have your own family? Because a lot of grieving men don't even consider to have their own families. How was it for you?
Okay. I would say, of course, it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy. I wouldn't say it was something that, because of my experience, I really, it's something I would say it's been a journey of faith. You see, when I lost my entire nuclear family, I knew now from me is where I'm gonna continue the generation of my father, and mother. So it was when I thought about having a family, it was a decision I really prayed about, and I told God to really help me that that He will, that when I decide to make that decision, I'll make a good decision in terms of the person I choose as a life partner, and also
I think God would protect my family, and he would, that they would live to continue the other generations. Of course, I understand that death is part of life, but I felt my family went before their time, like their deaths were premature. So I really like prayed God and told God, that He should help me, even when I get into that space of having my own family, that I will not get there in fear, but I'll get there knowing that He has protected me, and he's with me, and He has proved that as time went by. Because I remember I did grief counseling when I was 20. I was 24 years old, 25. That was, yeah, I was 25 years old. That is back in the year 2010. Is it? I was 23 actually. 2010, yes, I was 20. Born in 1986. So in 2010, I was 24. Yes, I was 24 years. And I got married 2 years ago. That is in 2018. So I was 31 years. So he's really helped me. And the other thing that I have done, I intentionally decided to do, is to keep working on myself, because I didn't want to be a baggage to somebody in terms of my significant other, because of the things that I had gone through. I didn't want to come with my fears and my grief or baggage. So I really had to continuously work on me. I really had to talk to people who are in that space and get to know what marriage is all about. I have men I look up to, men in my life that I look up to, men who are older than me, men who are married, who would, talk to me and tell me, this is what happens, this is what you do, this is how when you're a family person, these are the things that you do, these are the things that you think about, this is how you treat your significant other and your children. So I would say there has been intentional mentorship. And also I am a person who loves reading. I've read widely about family. So when I was getting into it, I got into it not from a place of fear, but from a place of knowledge, where I knew this is what I'm getting myself into. And I thank God. Because it's now close to 2 years since I got married, and I thank God. He has really, really been with us, and He has really, I would say, He's really helped us to, grow in terms of our family. We have a son. He's now turning 10 months. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing. And I really thank God. I would say God is the one who has helped me first. Then now what I've done intentionally to be where I am. I don't know whether I've answered you.
Yes, you have answered me, and I'm truly grateful for your insight. The last question is, what advice do you have for men who are going through grief? Possibly they have lost their spouses, they have lost their children, they have lost relationships. What advice do you have for them?
My advice would be to not to assume that they are okay, because sometimes, and this happens because men have a way of staying strong. Saying, I'm strong. I'm gonna. Grief doesn't know strength. That's what I would say. It doesn't, because it will catch up with you. You can hide it. You can, as I said, I hate my grief. I decided, what, I'm not dealing with this thing. And it caught up with me. Something will happen and it will trigger it. And what you do is, when you are grieving and you are going through grief and loss, if you don't go through the process of grieving, because it's a process, you have to go through the process. What it does is, it first of all, you are not able to live to your fullest potential. Then you will bleed on people who have not even hurt you, because grief is about, you feel hurt, like this person left, they've hurt you. And grief is not just about death, even loss of a relationship. You are dating this lady, or you're as a man, or as a lady, you're dating this gentleman, you had a very, very intimate relationship, it ends. What happens? You go through grief. You have grief. And if you are not able to deal with that situation, sometime later, it will catch up with you. So what I know, what I can say is it's very, very important to undergo through the process. Mourn, cry. Let me tell you, I cannot, the many times I cried, I really, I cried so many times, when I started now my journey. As you grow up, especially our generation, you're told men don't cry. And I think that's not a right thing to do, because as a psychologist, one of the ways to relieve yourself is emotionally, when you have emotional pain, is tears, is crying and expressing yourself. Men are not taught to express themselves. So I have cried so many times. I have shed tears when I think of what has happened to me. And even when I was going through my therapy, I really cried, and it really helped me to, it was good for my relief. So what I would tell men is, please, if you've gone through any kind of loss or grief, it's really good to seek therapy. Go seek therapy, and the importance of therapy is, as I said, grief. What grief does is, like, it puts a cloud, and you're not able to see forward or to see ahead. It's like there's a cloud. Grief it inhibits your abilities to become who God created you to be. So when you deal with grief, what happens is you become a better person. You are able to achieve more, and you are able to, even be of great help to even other people who are depending on you. Because as a man, if you're a family man, you're a leader. If you are in charge, and you are in ministry, you are a leader. Even at work, whatever the position you are in, if you don't deal with grief, you're going to, you're not going to live to your full potential. So that's my word of advice. Therapy is very important. Yes.
So much, Steve, for your insight and your words for us today. We truly appreciate. And we just want to bring someone else, as I mentioned, is very dear to me, and I will just have him share with us about his story. I will have him share with us about his story. I don't know whether you can hear me. Can you hear me, honey?
Hello. Yes, I can hear you, baby. I can.
So tell us, you have been a single dad for 6 years. Talk to us about the journey of being a single father to especially girl children. How was it like for you?
Thanks, baby. Thanks again for the time and the opportunity to share this, and not just to share, but we know and believe that someone somewhere there is picking something, and it's going straight into their hearts and helping somebody to realize that it is possible, the situation they've been through. Well, such situation, nobody can ever say that they get ready and prepare themselves for such eventuality. It catches and it happens off guard. Sometimes when it's the least expected. Well, in my own situation, it was a combination of many things. But at the very last moment, when I was instructed by the court of law that I should just find another place and go and start another life. So many things ran into my mind, considering where finding a place can happen, but within a short notice. Yes, of course, the kids, and things like that. So many things. First of all, I would like to say that when such thing happen, it's very good when somebody prays or somebody knows God. That I will have to say, because it prayer kind of hold the person together no matter the situation. So I had to leave and go into my big sister's house. And as I went, just about few weeks after I went into my sister's house, I went to work and came back, and I found the two girls were dropped off at my sister's house. So yeah, that just made it not more difficult, but you understand, we all parents know that kids get so much attached and comfortable with their own space, their own environment. Even though this is a very close person who's a blood sister to me, but her house is her house, it's not my house. So considering that kids are small, they have their own caprice and behavior, and I'm not a full-time home, I have to go around. So it has caused so much stress, because there were things I would have accepted and tolerated, especially for the kids, but being somewhere else, they are not used to them. They find it awkward, sometimes stop them or shout at them. All this, it's got into me, and myself also not being in my very comfortable space where I could just rearrange or reorganize things the way I want. So yeah, I had to get myself together. I had to be strong. I had to be the man. I had to be the father. So through it all. And the journey began. Like I said, there's no time for preparation. Okay, let me go prepare the place. Let me set up. Let me do this, because I know in a 3 months or 6 months time, I'll become a single parent. Because of the nature of the situation, you can't even control, because you don't know what is the other person doing, what is the other person planning, what is the intention. And it's definitely depend also on the person you're dealing with. If it's a person who has the sense and the maturity of a sit, let's sit and talk and see, fine. Some they react also on their own way, and making the whole situation even worse, much more difficult to deal with and handle. Being girls, of course, yeah, it has been a very, very, I would say, experiential journey for me, because then I had to play it all. We moved out of my sister's house 5 months later, because then I had to start rebuilding life. 5 months later, we moved into our new home, new house. But my commitment with my career that requires me to move up and down quite a lot, it was really not easy to have a new person as a helper in the house, to stay with the kids, that she's not even used to them, they are not used to her. The longest if I can recall very well, I had stayed with this person before leaving her alone with the kids, was just about 10 days, if not 2 weeks. Then I had to travel out of the country. Thank God my trips are not lengthy. But every moment my mind was back home with them. Every time calling, how was school, time for pickup, drop off, you know, and as much as sometimes we don't realize, but kids at this tender age, they could already see what is happening. And the worst thing myself I didn't want to do was to get them more affected, because the situation naturally has affected them already. So I had to kind of take care of them, take care of their wound, take care of myself, and then just being there. One of the focus and advice which I received was that it is not about you, it is not about her, it is about the children. So if you focus, this is the advice I received, the person speaking to me, if you focus on yourself, then you will forget how sensitive the kids are. And you might just focus on things that doesn't really benefit them for, you know, to bring them back to normalcy. So what you need to do is, it's not about you, it's not about her, it's about the kids. Focus on what is good for the children. It happens some months after that the other partner came back again and claiming to have the children. Of course, once you are a biological parent of the kids, nobody can change that. But in this situation, especially after the court process, then there were some procedures to follow, which in this instance now we were referred to the child welfare department, and child welfare department doesn't care who did what. Their problem is not who's wrong, who's right. They're not even going to listen to what has brought the parents to either divorce or separation or what. Child welfare, it's all about the benefit of the children. So they had to conduct their inspection, but the advice that I received, that is not about me, but about the children, is, I would say, what today made me to be the prime caregiver and have the custody of the children, because even they might, I didn't show that I'm too greedy. All I want is to hold on to the children, but I had said all I want is for the children to have a good, better life, to go to school, to do this, to do that, to have, okay, their life is already disturbed, but we shouldn't disturb it further. So after further assessment, then yes, I was given the kids as a prime caregiver. It has been a journey, and then beside that, they are girls. So you would just understand that I had to play both a father and a mother. I'm sure you do have more questions, baby. So let me not touch everything, just in case you coming back with another question.
Thank you so much for really sharing with us great insights there. But I just want to ask you, for you as a man, what advice would you give to other men who are in similar situations? Because sometimes you find that men go through really painful situations that they don't perhaps talk about. You mentioned the case of going to the children's court. Most people feel that the children must always stay with their mother based on the ages of the kids. But for you, it was different. So right now, maybe there's a man who is watching us and he's going through the same thing that you went through. What advice would you give him?
Beside what you said of usually kids go with the mother, there's also advices from the streets or social media, but this is not founded. I also know that from one country to another, the law might be different, but to other men that are out there, first of all, I would tell them that they don't need to punish the children because of the conflicts of the adult. That is the very, very first thing. Secondly, one thing we were taught at the court is that there is nobody who has more right on the children than the other. Okay, this was just before we get to the child welfare department. Both parents have 100% right on the children. But however, the child welfare will see who can give the best life quality to these kids. So some men are discouraged out there because they hear so much on the streets, just out there. Remember that if you go to court, they will take the kids, they will give to the woman. And a lot of men, they tend to back down or withdraw, neglecting their own children, leaving the children suffer just because they've given up way too early. The purpose is not what I'm not saying here that men need to stand and fight and take the children. No, that is not what matters. Because let me say something which at some point I had said. When there was so much pressure at some point in front of the expert of the law, I said that it's okay. If you want to take the children and keep them, it is fine. I'm okay with that. But as long as you convinced us enough that you are able not to disturb their education, their health care, their lifestyle or standard. You see, for such, it doesn't really show greed, but it shows that the person wants the good life for the children, for example. So to men who are going through such situation, what I would like to tell them is that God doesn't do anything by chance, like Pastor Sam David said. Okay, God gives boys, girls to so and so person because he knows as a parent you can do it, you can handle, you can raise them. It is not a mistake. It's not because you are not able to. So we need to stand as men, because also remember on the when you go, for example, look at the statistics, okay, you will see that there is actually very less damages, very minimal, from children who grow up with a father, a single father, raised by a single father, rather than the opposite. America is an example. They record all the data. So there is an example also. There is a need for that. And then you also realize that I'm addressing all the men, that God always referred to himself to us as a father. And there is a need, whether a girl or boy, we have a father there in heaven. This should appeal to all the men as fathers, that there is that touch, there is that ability for us to just bring up these children that God has blessed us with in the right way, and bring back, restore the love, restore the confidence, restore the attachment, and they can still become very, very successful in life, and then actually encourage many other more people. Yes, that's what I can actually say to other men.
My next question to you is actually very interesting. Let's move from the aspect of single fathers, and then we tackle the matter of fatherhood. Fatherhood is very complex. It's very important in our society, in the family setup. But a lot of people are grieving because of fathers. You have just mentioned one aspect of it. You know, single fathers are men who have decided, you know what, I will step up to the plate and I'm going to take care of my kids. But there are also absentee fathers, and there are fathers who are present in the flesh but absent in responsibility. What are the roles, according to you, of a father?
Sorry, baby, the last sentence was cutting. I'm not sure if it's your internet, but it was breaking up. If myself or anybody noticed the same thing, if you can just repeat that.
I'm saying, what are the roles, according to you, of a father? You have already discussed about single fatherhood, but the fathers are very important in the society, in the family setup, you know, and in the generation today. So maybe you can take us through the roles, according to you, of a father.
Okay. The role of a father, wow, it's a very important very important question. First of all, the nature will teach us. Okay, if it was, we understand that there are situations beyond our control, and this shouldn't not just be limited to what we are saying here. For example, some people are also single parents, not just because of human separation, but natural cause. There are babies, for example. We also record unfortunate circumstances of some mothers giving birth and then unfortunately not making it back to life, and this baby stays with the father. Okay, so it's not just about the separation. There are different circumstances that can lead to a man finding himself in a he has to cover both sides of a father and a mother, but as a man. So the role of a man is first of all, the umbrella of a man is huge, especially in the family, especially for the children. Is a father should be an example a child will look up to. We learn responsibility. I'm sure, baby, you much closer to me and many things you can relate. And then I will tell you that I grew up seeing this, not just in terms of education, even groceries in the house. I'm sure you know what I always say about that. And then I will tell you why and where I got that way of dealing with, for example, groceries in the house in a certain way, you know, the way we do. Is a father has to be a mirror a child is looking, they look themselves into. If they are boys, to inspire themselves and be better and say that my dad has been like this, like that. My dad, I want to be a role model. The father has to be a role model for the children. A father should be proud to say that I want my children to have, to become, if not better, like myself. The girls should be able to learn how a husband should be from their father. Okay, a protector. Generally people talk of very few things that will be limited to a protector. Yes, a leader. Yes, a provider. Yes, but also a mentor. Okay. Yeah, you talked about girls. One day we went shopping. Okay, this is how I introduced Now, I knew these are young girls. They start having their menstruations. So we went shopping. As we were shopping and we entered the aisle of the pads and all that. And then I said to them, do you guys need some pads? And they look at each other like in a shock, like but they seemed very uncomfortable. Then I asked them, why? What's wrong? They say, but why are you saying it loud? Everyone will just hear. I just laughed, But then after that, I said to them, but these things, look, for example, they are on the shelves. They are not hidden. These are not things of shame. You don't have to feel shame about it. And it is a stage of time that actually opened more conversation. And I actually realized, they realized that, okay, that is actually comfortable to talk about this, and it has become a normal issue. If they really experiencing it, they having discomfort, they don't hesitate to come and ask for painkiller, for example, and things like that. This is a father. This is an old pastor who said to me, be a father, not a friend. Okay, on his own way, he made so much sense and said that just understand that your children already have many friends at school. They really do. They have many friends. Be a father. What he meant, after explaining, elaborating further, was it didn't mean that, no, I shouldn't play or laugh with them. No, it was nothing of that kind. But what he really meant was that I shouldn't overlook their flaws and wrongdoing, because one thing with a single parent, but in this case I'm talking about single fathers, what if we don't pay attention, we miss it. We try to cover so much because we are aware of the vulnerability and the exposure the children have been into, that it's like we want them to forget that as quick as possible, and we overlooked all their wrongdoing. So we cover up, we protect, we mend, we don't correct, we don't want to discipline, we don't want to shout. And that is why this old man, who's a man of God, said to me, don't be a friend, they have many friends, but be a father. And what he just meant is that while you are taking care of them, don't forget to correct. And he's always telling me, remember, God referred to us as a father, and he says that he chastises what those he loves. So if you love, where there is a love, don't mend the wrongdoing of a child, but correct the child, to bring the child in a right way. And you will thank me later. So I get to realize we listen also. We need to seek advice. Men shouldn't lock themselves also alone and think that I can just do it by myself, or with whoever we go drink with, or we go sit somewhere and talk. We need advice, but just pick the right person to advise you, because there is our life involved here. So the role of a man is really to be, if I have to summarize it, every man should ask himself, are they proud to say to their children, the boys, that they want their children to be like them, as when they grow up, to behave like themselves as fathers? If they are girls, are they proud that their girls would be proud to say, I want a husband so responsible like my father? This is because we are not just raising, we are building the next society. Thank you very much.
For the sake of time, I will first just thank you for being very honest, and I will bring someone else who I have known for quite a bit. I want to bring Pastor Sam again to this conversation. I hope you can hear me, Pastor Sam. Now, just take us through a very complex topic. Marriages nowadays are considered a very bad, it's like a battlefield. People feel that, some think marriage is a scam, some things they think marriage is not working. But there's also this conversation that is coming up, domestic violence. What is going on with the men? If you can just, take 5 minutes to just compress it down and discuss what is the reason why in the 21st century we are having a lot of domestic violence cases. What do you think is going on?
Wow. Wow. Domestic violence is caused by, number one, insecurity. We have so many people who have been raised up with a lot of their past is causing so much insecurities in their own life. So probably a man feels better when he hits a woman, and that is number one. So insecurity could be one of the reasons that is causing the young couples of the domestic violence in marriage. And another thing is also lack of proper direction, lack of mentorship. If I remember very, very vividly, Shall, you can remember when I got my wife, we were in church and we were in the same singing group. And at that time, there were so many girls all around. And I looked at her and I was like, wow, this is the one that I love. And the first thing I did, I ran to the pastor who was in charge. It's called Pastor Benachero. I ran to him and I told him, sir, I've seen somebody and I'm interested with her. And the first thing he said that I want to see both of you. So after we spoke together and we agreed together, we sat down with Pastor Ben and we were accountable. Now look at this. Before marriage, we did it for I think two to 3 years. During that time, there are many times that we could disagree. I was battling something called I was battling temper. Being raised in Eastlands, it's not easy when somebody tells you don't do that. And I was battling with temper. And amazingly, by God's grace, every time she could, my fiance then would look at me and say, I'm gonna tell Pastor Ben about this. I was like, I will cool down and I will sober up. Now look at that. That is mentorship, which is very key for the generation that we are in. So many in our generation, we don't have mentorship. We don't have people who can go and look out to people who have been there. We've been married for 15 years, 14 years, going to 15 years. And look at it. It is by the grace of God. Look at, in my past, we never had anybody we could look up to that has been married. The only person that I can remember marrying is my cousin who was married, and my grandparents. Now the rest was chaotic. All the others were chaotic. But look at this. Because we had a mentor, we were able to sustain our marriage. It doesn't mean that I will never get angry. I got angry many times. It doesn't mean everything was smooth all the way. No. But look at this. Many years down the line, I can say that we conquered this, we conquered the other. And because we had mentorship. So your past does not determine your future. If you are raised in violence, it doesn't mean that you have to keep to fund your marriage in violence. Hitting a woman doesn't show what kind of a man you are. It doesn't. Now, another thing is that there are so many secrets in marriage. Some people find it that I can't expose too much to my wife. I can't expose too much to my husband. Why should I? I should hold back. Now, the day the other person realizes, it causes something called friction, and you start disagreeing. So by the end of the day, there is that domestic violence. And the most importantly, it is the lack of the fear of God. Lack of the fear of God. Look at this. A family that prays together stays together. A family that reads the word of God together, they grow not only in the word, but they grow in faith together. It is very key that if you love your wife, then you must learn to know, if you love God, then it automatically comes down to loving your wife or your husband. And if you love them, then you will not fight or raise your hand against one another. Sometimes it is not that it's easy. It's not that it's easy. Sometimes you will feel like you want to slap the other person. It seems that you want to shout at the other person. But what do? When you feel that, take a breather, just get out of the house, get a drive, or just go on a walk, then come back. So lack of the fear of God will cause many people to have domestic violence, having secrets. Not, and also the another very key in our generation, it is cheating. Probably you think that you can get somebody else, and somebody else looks better than your spouse, and now you come back home and you're looking at your wife or your husband, thinking to yourself, why can't you treat me like that? Why can't you treat me like this? Why can't you treat me like the other? And now you start comparing with whatever you saw and whatever you have experienced on the other side. Now let me tell you, that is very dangerous, because let me tell you, every new car or every new dress or everything that is new always looks good until you start using it. The more you use it, it starts fading off. And let me tell you, your wife looks the way she looks today because she has 2 children down the line. The children did not come from heaven. You brought the children. Now look at this. The grass that you're thinking it's greener on the other side probably is growing on a sewer, as my mama will say. Very key. You must take care of what you have. There is no reason for having domestic violence. In fact, any man or any woman that fights his spouse just shows how bad they are or how they can never be corrected in life. Because God loves a gentleman. God loves a gentlewoman. You never build your house by fighting one another. In fact, you never show, and let me prove this other person how I am made of. It shows what you're made of is something not good. So you must ensure that there has to be no domestic violence. Fighting one another is not allowed. It is not. In fact, let me tell you, if you grew up seeing your father and your mother fighting, and now you are tempted to do that, go look for somebody who has made it. And I'll tell them, and be open up, and say that, you guys, I feel like every time my wife tells me this, I feel like I want to slap her. And let me tell you, talk it out. Before you know, you realize that you have made it. And the very last one, it is for reason of domestic violence, is lack of friendship. Are you and your spouse friends? Are you friends? Then if you're not friends, then I tell you, it's easy for you to slap the other person. It's easy for you to just say any word. Domestic violence is not only a matter of hitting the other person. It is also in the words that you speak. Words create and words destroy. Whatever you speak, it becomes.
You wanted to go for
a
walk.
If you don't speak the right words to the other person, then I tell you the truth, you are destroying the other person. And that is very key. Thank you, Shirley.
Thank you. I think you mentioned about cheating. We were supposed to just go and discuss that topic. Now, because you talked about it, allow me just, in a nutshell, because we will be wrapping up shortly. Why do men cheat? Are men prone to cheat? Is their DNA accustomed to cheating? Because those are the things that women really don't understand. Do men cheat because of opportunity? Do they cheat because it's a sexual fantasy that they have? Do they cheat because, just for the kick of it? I mean, I think there are women who will be watching and just want to understand, why do men cheat? Briefly take us through this.
All right. Why do men cheat? Wow, that's a beautiful question. Now, it draws me back to when I was growing up and I was being raised by my grandmother and my grandfather. I will always find myself in the cupboard where they will put the sugar. And I will go pick the sugar and eat. not knowing that I've left some sugar on my face. And then my grandmother will come and ask me, why have you eaten sugar? And I'm saying, no, I'm not eating. And now what I forgot is that I had evidence. Now, let me tell you, cheating is an adventure. Every man was created to be a hunter. Every man was created to be a pursuer. And every man feels good when they pursue and get it. Now, look at this. When a man was pursuing this girl, the first time, he was very consistent. And the moment the man got this lady and they got married, and now they stay together, the man has accomplished. Now he wants to go out and pursue again. That is the nature of a man. So it is very key for you to realize that cheating makes a man feels, builds the ego. A man feels that he has conquered. Haven't you seen in some people in social media? They feel good. Men feel good when they say that that used to be my girlfriend. That used to be my girlfriend. Because a man feels that I have conquered. But the question is it the right way to conquer? Let me tell you, the best way to conquer is when you have conquered and you sustain conquering what you have. A sustained conquering, if there's a word like that, it shows that you are a conqueror. So if you have reached and got that girl and got her into your house, and that means that now she's part and parcel of you, then you have already conquered. Why do spouses cheat? Now, it's not only men that cheat, but also women cheat. If we are living in a society whereby now it's even worse. Man can cheat with another man, and a woman can cheat with another woman. And they just say that we are brothers, we are sisters. We are living in that generation. Why does somebody feel like cheating? And what makes what makes a man love another man? What makes a woman love another woman? It is not the Spirit of God. It is a spirit from the devil. It is the work of a devil to distract your destiny. Every time a man sins or a woman sins or sleeps with somebody else who is not their spouse, what happens is that they carry the spirit of the other person. Now imagine you as a husband, you have cheated on your wife, and your wife has cheated on the husband. Now then you come back to sleep together. You have 4 people in one bed. Eish, the devil is a liar. The devil is after your destiny. The devil is after destroying you. And so what the devil does, he makes cheating look so sweet, so appealing. Anything the devil will bring is not good. The devil has an agenda. That's why even when Jesus, he was from prayer. He came from prayer mountain. Fasting, praying and fasting. And the first person he met was the devil. And the devil said, if you are the Son of God, and I know you're very hungry, why can't you change these stones into bread? Hey, look at that. And then look at this. Jesus refused to get into the box of the devil. He said, man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that proceeds from the mouth of the Lord. Look at this. And Jesus was very hungry. Whatever the devil will always present, he will present in whatever he knows that you need. You will be walking by the streets, and all of a sudden, the hips, lips, and the fingertips that pass by you, oh my God, you are left mesmerized and say, oh God of all creation. You're left in awe. And let me tell you, is it that really that what you want? And that is when you should remember the word of God. Man shall not live, like Jesus said, by bread alone. So it is a nature of a man, but it is the nature of somebody who has been washed by the blood of Jesus to realize this one I cannot touch. I've got to remain faithful. Even if I have to force my body, my spirit man must arise and conquer the fleshly desire. In Jesus' mighty name, amen.
Thank you so much. I'm really having fun in this conversation. I just want to ask someone else to come on board. Pastor Sam, I will just come back to you shortly. Dr. can you hear me?
Yeah, Shadi, how are you?
I'm very fine, sir. Now, just talk to us about this very sensitive topic called reproductive health. Women are encouraged to go, you're a gyna by profession, women are encouraged to go and visit a gyna, but men are never encouraged to go and visit the urologist. And today, just because it's about men, what can you tell the men? Is it important for them to go to the urologist? After how long? Once a year, twice a year, and why? Just take us through this sensitive topic.
Oh, thank you very much, Shadi. First of all, I want to thank you for the stories that have been told in this forum. In particular, I want to caption just a bit the story of Steve Muchiri. And I want to say that from his story, it is evident that there is a need to strengthen the health systems across the country. And that's why we keep advocating for a strong, especially public health system, because people should not pass on from the diseases, preventable diseases that his relatives actually passed on. When you hear of people passing on from measles, from tuberculosis, these are preventable illnesses. Now, to bring on the aspect of what is called men's health, I think a lot of stress and a lot of world focuses on the ladies, and they are urged to go for regular checkups, such as the pap smears, the breast exams, just to try to detect early the preventable illnesses that can be treated early or identified early and treated. For men, generally, there is no such advice, except that when they say as men start, for instance, turn 40 years of age, then they are advised to start doing exams like just to see their urologist, see whether they can do a full body exams. You do your blood works, you do your you do your physical exams, and all. Of importance is that from about that age, it is known that the prostate gland of men, which produces prostatic fluid, begins to enlarge, and this is a factor of age, and there is that risk of prostatic cancer. Though not rife, but regular checkups would be able probably to identify it early and get it treated earlier than if it spreads around. So for men, generally, regular checkups, usually probably after 40 years, maybe once a year, is just a routine. But of course, they are advised to eat well, have good nutrition, and that checkup is what the urologist would probably do for you.
Dr. Allow me further ask a couple of questions that I'm very sure women would want to hear. The issue about childbirth, it is another very sensitive matter. Because when you find that a couple does not have children, they will come and sit before you and try to find out what is wrong. And sometimes it is said, by different, medical research, you'll find that the society will blame the woman, but sometimes is the man that has an issue. But in the African setup, even if we have to deal with Kenya, you find the blame really never squarely lies on the man in cases of infertility. Why can you talk to the men today that they should at least be much open to the ideas of even being tested as a man to ensure that infertility is not an issue in marriage? Take us through what your advice for a man going through or a woman going through this issue will have to deal with right now.
Oh, thank you very much again, Shirley. And I think what you have touched on is an issue called sub-fertility. We call it sub because there is potential for everyone who desires to carry a child to actually get one, save for very few situations. So our approach as scientists is very simple. Over the years, we have accumulated data that sub-fertility has, to make a baby, you need a man and a woman. So if there is an issue or a delay in actually getting a baby, then you need to investigate. You need to investigate both the lady and the man. And we know that about 1/3 of the causes of subfertility in a relationship can be the woman only. Another 1/3 can be the man only. These are studies done. But there is that third which has some aspects of both of them. Maybe they have low abilities to actually get these pregnancy. And therefore, when you come to us with a complaint of subfertility, the first thing we ask you to do is to come as the two people who want to get the baby. And when they come, then we take a thorough history of both the man and the woman. And after taking history, we would more or less have an opinion as gynecologists on where the problem lies. But we go further and examine both and go further and do investigations for both. So in order to conceive naturally, for instance, you need the sperm, you need an ovum, which is an egg, and you need them to meet in the fallopian tubes, and you need them to grow in the womb for about 9 months, and then you for that. So we investigate each and every aspect of that process. And the three probably basic tests that you probably do when you do as the first step when investigating a couple who have been looking for a baby and have not conceived yet is actually to educate them on how to get pregnant. A lot of it, people normally rush to investigating, oh, we think it's the man, it's the woman, and we sit down with them and give them, explain to them the anatomy of how to get pregnant. It is assumed that it is easy, but it's not necessarily easy. And we tell them about the cycle, which time the couple is fertile. And you'll be surprised that for each cycle, the couple are only fertile for about 5 days only in a whole cycle. So if I give the example of the couple whose, for instance, one of the spouses works out of town and they keep meeting to try to conceive on a weekend, for instance, you may find that that weekend is out of the cycle for getting pregnant, as in you do not have, you're missing the time of ovulation. So as I say, those 5 days in which you can get pregnant is the day of ovulation plus 2 days and the day of ovulation minus 3 days. The principle of that is that spermatozoa can stay in the cervix of the lady waiting for an egg for 3 days. And once ovulation occurs, then the egg can live for a day or two. And that's the only time for period. So even before we ask a couple to go for investigations, then we would actually educate them. And a lot of times, a lot of people are able to use maybe some apps or the calendar method to actually conceive. This actually is the principle of natural family planning. And a lot of them conceive. When we have tried for some time and they have not conceived, then now we move on to the next step of actually doing some investigations. And the easiest and fastest to do is to check whether the man's ability to give a baby is there, using a test called a semen analysis. We analyze the semen and look at the adequacy of spermatozoa. Are they moving in front well? Are they well structured? And all that is on the man. And at the same time, we can check whether there is the lady is ovulating using the history of, for instance, regular menses, and maybe do an ultrasound. On occasionally, we may check whether the fallopian tubes are open, and there is some investigation that is done to check whether the fallopian tubes are open. And once we have established the baselines, and then from then on, we proceed further to actually give advice. So for instance, if a common causes of subfertility, as I said, include like a blocked fallopian tubes. And in terms of public health advice, some infections like gonorrhea and chlamydia can lead to inflammation of the tubes, and later you realize that your tubes are blocked. So with that, we can proceed to see how best to manage that. Other causes, now for the men, would, for instance, we'll check at their sperms in the first place. You may find that there are no sperms, and there are causes of that can be maybe what we call the vas deferens is blocked. The pipe that brings the sperms from the testes to the exit, and this you'd want to investigate further. And maybe sperms are not being produced, you'd want to investigate that further. And when you have established what it is, then you can now investigate further to try to assist the men. So yes, to answer your question, the causes of subfertility can be both male, female, or combined. And therefore, at the earliest opportunity, the men can actually visit the gynecologist if they're having problems with delays in making babies, so to speak. And we can be of assistance. If we think that the urologist is necessary, then we will refer you to the urologist. Over, Shirley.
Doc, I'm really having fun, but I'm looking at the time and I'm wondering, will we cover everything? But just take us through these very sensitive topics. Number one, if you can write them down, artificial insemination. Yes or no for men. The second thing that I want you to quickly just take us through, I know you're a strong advocate of good healthcare in Kenya, and I really, really admire what you do in the Kenya medical space and even Africa as well. Why is DNA testing so expensive in Kenya?
Oh, okay. Thanks again, Shirley. But I see you did some agriculture back in secondary school, and terms like artificial insemination are still high on your mind. But in obstetrics and gynecology and fertility medicine, we don't call it artificial insemination. That is left for cows, animals, and all. So we have concepts like what we call the concept of where you to try to solve some fertility issues. For instance, and I think you are stressing more on the man side. For instance, if you identify the men's problems as having no sperms, so what do you do when the couple wants a baby? So no sperms or low sperms, or the sperm and the eggs are not compatible, so to speak. And that is in the realm of fertility medicine. We have quite a number of fertility experts in the country. But maybe to go quickly to your question, we were probably talking of in vitro fertilization. In vitro means in a petri dish, and fertilization is where you get the sperm and the egg the fusion of it is in a petri dish, then it is put back in the body, in the uterus of a prepared lady for the baby to grow there. And that is used to solve a couple of problems. And there are very many indications for in vitro fertilization. You would probably follow that up as almost a last line recommendation by your gynecologist for various factors that cannot be done otherwise. So it's not artificial insemination, it's called in vitro fertilization. But there is also a concept of what is called intrauterine insemination, whereby the semen can be placed beyond the cervix into the womb, so to speak, at the time of ovulation, to see whether you can overcome some of the factors that were causing infertility at the cervical level. In terms of DNA, a DNA test is a lab test, and lab tests have several properties that go into its costing. So a DNA test would have a very high level kind of technology, high level kind of expertise that is needed, and that needs to be processed in a sort of a specialized lab, almost similar to COVID, so to speak. And that's why these tests become expensive. And because they're not done too often, then the demand is low. And anything whose demand is low and may still have a high cost. So those are the factors that may cause the cost of DNA testing to be high, so to speak.
Okay. Thank you for the correction. I mean, that is what we know as lay people, but I am grateful for the correction that you have given, Dr. Now, last thoughts for everyone. So I will start with Steve. I don't know whether, Steve, you can hear me. What are your last thoughts? Because we really need to wrap up. Maybe we need to do this again. But what are your last thoughts, sir?
Hear me?
Yes. Now we can hear you. Yes.
Okay. So I was asking, is it my last thoughts in regard to what I spoke about, or to everything?
Last thoughts to everything, because we really need. Yes.
Okay. What I would say is that I think this was very informative. I have learned quite a few things in regards to the topics that you are talking about. I've learned a lot about fatherhood. I've learned a lot about men and their fertility and everything about what is it called, the health, what Dr. Kigondu has talked about, basically. Yeah, and also what Pastor has talked about, it was also very, very informative. And yeah, I think this is really a good platform, and yeah, and I think it's a worthwhile thing to do. So thank you for even hosting us and giving us this opportunity.
Thank you so much, Steve. I'm gonna ask my husband to speak. Your last thoughts about the conversations that have been going on, and any other thing that you felt you needed to mention that probably you did not, in at least 2 or 3 minutes.
All right. First, I would like also to express my gratitude and also say thank you so much for organizing this. It's really eye-opening, and the knowledge here is just so much. Sometimes we get so closed up with our own understanding that we believe in it, that what we know is just what everything is. But through this platform, we actually realize that we have a lot to learn. Especially to us men, that ideally in the society, men are known as the quietest people. Men don't talk. But yes, what I would like to add is that men are just as human as anybody else. Men can cope with the situation. My plea would be for men that are feeling discouraged because of what has happened to them, to their union, and the children to step up, even if children are staying with the other partner, but they can still be fathers, they can still be parents, even if children are not staying with them in a full-time, in a permanent basis. So we can still, we want to let us have a new generations, of responsible fathers, responsible men who gives the support to the children, that we don't abandon children, we don't make them suffer because of what happened. Let's be there. And yeah, I had a question that was sent to me. This I actually have to say, it was addressed to Dr. A friend of mine whom I had sent the link said to me, ask a doctor, is there a possibility, how can a man know that they have fertility issues without being sexually active? So I don't know how to answer to that question myself. So I guess maybe if you find the 30 seconds into that on your closing remarks, I'm hoping he's following where he is, and he will get his answer. Thank you.
Doc, over to you. I think you've heard that there is a question that has been posed your way. So is it possible that you give a response and then you give you give your closing remarks to us?
Yes, thank you very much. I think for men, the advice would be to avoid compromising your fertility issues. We must keep away from sexually transmitted diseases. We have known diseases like gonorrhea and chlamydia, when not treated, can lead to blocked vas deferens, the tubes. And therefore, one, just try to eat well, eat healthy, avoid sexually transmitted diseases any way you know how. And then if, for instance, someone can do a semen-analysis, the test that checks what is the quality of sperm and all, and that is probably very easy. It's a straightforward lab test. So your friend, you can actually tell them that. On the other front, I would like to thank Shirley for this opportunity. I personally think stories are the way to go. And a lot of these has not been done in Africa. We personally, at a personal level, we try to tell our stories. We try to put a real life picture on what things are in life. So let's continue with this. You can have more and more stories, and the more stories you have, the more knowledge people have, and knowledge sharing is very good. And for men, generally, you would advise them to get into discussion groups where people talk about their experiences, and everyone is different. So there is no magic bullet into the issues affecting fertility, love, whatever topic, everyone has their say. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Daktari. Over to you, Pastor. If you can just take us briefly through the role of the church where love is concerned, even as you close. A lot of people are seeking for one thing, love. The genuineness of it is what is the issue. But what is the church's role? Because we feel that even when you enter many churches, unfortunately, I could be wrong, but when you enter many churches, you find the number of women versus the number of men in church. It is more women who attend church. What is the role of the church where the man is concerned? In closing.
Thank you, Shirley. This has been amazing. Thank you so much. I really appreciate, and I've learned a lot, and quite inspired. Quite inspired by all of everybody, and especially the testimony of Steve. That testimony is mind-boggling, man. Steve, I need to catch up with you, man. That testimony is such a blessing. Now, and the rest of us, Didier and Dr. Simon, that's amazing. Now, the role of the church to the men. The role of the church to the men. That is a very, very good question. It's a challenging question. But I believe that the church, number one, should create a family environment. And that's why it is very important. Personally, I love and appreciate that I've been raised up in a church where we call our bishop, our senior pastor, we call him dad, and our senior mother, spiritual authority, we call her mother. Now, other people may see that as just a manipulative or just other names, but personally, that gave me a foundation to know how a man operates in his own house, and because I grew up seeing the father behaving in such a way, and that made me to know how a father should treat his family or should treat his children, and also how the father treats the wife. That is a very important role as a church. And number two is to teach. The church should teach the men to be men. And this is also very important. Once in a while, the pastor can rise up and just teach the fathers. Maybe on the Father's Day, just teach the fathers. Or probably during a wedding, and tell every father, this is how you should do, this is how you should not do. Teaching is very key. And also equipping. And also lastly, it's also about mentorship. The church should have a mentorship program for the fathers, for the men, where they can go out on their own without the ladies. And there they talk and they learn from each other. Then there comes a mentor who can come and tell them, this is how we should do and this is how we should not do. It's very key, because let me tell you, a man, when he hears it from another man, it builds a better foundation. So the church should ensure that it stays very close to the husbands. And unfortunately, in our society, there are so many women in church than men. But when I look at the life of Jesus, the disciples, there are all of them, the disciples were men. Why is it so? It's because sometimes the church, we have failed. As a church, we have failed to pull the men together and to let the men know that you can still be a man and still be in church. Most men don't love submitting. Most men feel that, no, how can I come to church and how can I come and serve this? How can I come do the other? They don't want to do that. They want to find everything done. They don't want to take the responsibility. I encourage every man that is watching me, ensure you are in the company of good, godly men. A bad company corrupts a good character. Ensure you are in a company of good men. Where do we get these good men? Find them in church. Go and pray. Go and read the word of God and go with your family. Nothing is as good as when you go to the church with your wife and your children. Right now, we may not be doing that, but in the house, ensure that you pray. Pray together, read the word of God together. This is a role of the church to encourage families in the church. And as I wind up, I will also love to just to touch on what almost everybody has talked about, dealing with the grief, loss, and the healing. Steve has really talked about going through grief. This was a whole well-packaged stuff. Every woman out there should know that men go through pain, men go through loss, but also the same men go through healing. And there is nothing as beautiful as when you get married and your wife helps you to go through the healing. Also, Didier talked about the fatherhood. Let me tell you, it is very irresponsible. I have to use that word. It is very irresponsible for any man to sire a child and leave that child. It doesn't matter whether you are in agreement or disagreement with the mother. You have to ensure that you take care of that child. Whether they are with you or not, wherever they are, it is your seed out there. And sooner or later, those children that you're looking at, they're going to become big. And woe unto you if you do not take care of them. I love the example of Didier. He took care of he took his responsibility to take care of the children. If you love those children at their tender age, they may not tell you, but they see it in their subconscious mind. They will become responsible because as you as a parent, whether living together or separated, you have set a very good example and knowing that these are my children. Every man, if you love your children and you show them love, what happens? These children grow with something called self-confidence. They have confidence. They know nothing can defeat me. And they are able to face life with a lot of confidence. And that is what we need in our generation. Men that take responsibility. What is responsibility? Responsibility, if you cut into two, as my bishop says, it is respond to the ability that you have. And as a man, you have to respond with the ability of becoming a father. You don't have to provide 1,000,000 shillings, even that 5 shillings, in whatever small capacity, your availability, talking to them, giving them guidance. It shows that you are a father and you have taken responsibility. And also about cheating and, cheating, forgiving, and the role of the church. You've got to learn to forgive your spouse. Yes, they have cheated. Forgive them. Sit down with them and talk. The Bible talks about, for all have sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. Forgiving is divine. If you don't forgive someone that has sinned, I tell you, life is like a bicycle. You are up today, tomorrow you'll be down and the other person will be up. If you don't forgive today, in your time of need, you will not treat forgiveness. You must learn to forgive, and you must learn to ensure you accommodate the other person. Because I tell you the truth, 20 years is coming, 30 years is coming, 40 years is coming, and the person that you will be with is the same person that you're despising today. What will happen when you have no strength and the other person has strength? Learn to forgive and to accommodate. And don't keep saying that I forgave you yesterday, today I will not forgive you. My friend, you don't forgive them because they deserve it. You forgive them for yourself. Forgive them so that you can have room to love them. My wife tells me, baby, how comes we are doing this and you forget about it? Because I forgive and I forget very fast. In fact, if my wife does something and we are talking about it, I probably have forgotten about it. Why? Because I have purpose to ensure that only room that is in my heart, it is forgiveness. Look at this. If God forgave you of your sins, that costed him his son. And look at it. From Genesis all the way to Malachi, God was trying to see whether if animals could save the life of a man. But he realized none of these things could do. That's why he said, for God so loved the world that he gave his only son. Why? Because God had so much love and he had forgiven man. But he wanted man to come back to himself. Every time you forgive, you create room for love. Amen. And Dr. Simon, that was amazing. All learning about the artificial, all those things were amazing. And it's very important as a couple, always go to the doctor. Always ensure that you check out yourself. It does not mean that you don't have faith. It just means that you're a human being, the same way you eat food, the same way you drink water, the same way you live life, the same way you have children. It just means that you are a responsible couple, and husbands, take your wife to the hospital. Don't let her go alone when she's going through all this, and especially when they're almost having a child. Ensure that you go with your children, with your wife. That creates a lot of bonds together and you love one another even more. And I will leave you with this word saying that the greatest man is not known by the amount of money in the bank. The greatest man is not known by how many cars he's driving. A great man is not known by the house that he's living in. A great man is known by the love that he shows towards his children. That day when you don't have any more strength and God is taking you home and you're surrounded by your children, they will not remind you of the house that you had. They will not remind you of the cars that you had. They will neither even remind you of the money in the bank, but they will remind you of the love that you showed toward them. So show your family some love and spend with your family. It doesn't matter how much money you have. You could be living in a house that is beaten down, but let your love be felt by your family. Amen. God bless you. God keep you and God surround you with his favor. I'm yours, Sam David.
Oh Lord, I feel so sad that we need to come to an end to this. I appreciate all of you guys for just coming and sharing your insights. I want to believe that the women have listened to you. My last thoughts, briefly, because I am deeply, I've learned so much. I have written and written. I was just flipping and writing some more. I just want to thank you, Pastor Sam, for coming. My husband, Didier, thank you so much, honey. Dr. Kigondu, Steve, your stories have touched both men and women. I'm having all these conversations going on my own page where people are just saying, I think we need to hear more about the men. If I call on you, please, I beg you to come. I hope you had fun like I did. But there's one thing I also want just to tell people. If you want to learn about the men, I think it's important that you speak to the men. I see all these women saying men do ABCD, but the men know themselves. And today we have just learned different things about men, love, and language. I want to wrap this up by saying God bless you. Thank you so much for tuning in. I ask that if you're watching, please subscribe to the YouTube channel so that we can continue bringing more stories as Dr. Kigondu asked us to do. The reason why I want to do this is just to have real people talk about real experiences and how they have overcome situations in their lives and how they have become victorious. I really, really have need, and my main craving as Shirley is just to see marriages work and relationships work according to God's original plan. I thank you so much for being here. God bless you. We are praying for you. Until next time, let us know what you want the men to discuss about next time, and possibly in our next session, we're going to have the women speak to us. God bless you. Thank you so much, our guests, and be blessed.
Thank you so much, baby. Thanks for everything. Thanks for the platform.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. God bless you.